So we've begun to look at concentration, but before we go any further, I would like us to take a step back and take a look at the map. Look at what we've been doing these past few months, actually since September, and show you the map, locate where we are. And this is a map that we will keep adding to as our practice unfolds. There are many ways to configure the practice. So what I'd like to offer today is really our roadmap, the Bill and Susan roadmap. And as I was writing those words, roadmap, today, I was thinking, you remember the time, how many of you remember when we used to have physical maps that we could hold in our hands, and we could see if we had gotten off the beaten track, how we could get back on and continue on our journey. I loved those maps, I really did. And I wished when we first began practicing that someone had laid out a map that made sense to me. I felt like the teachings were so unwieldy, they were so big and vast, and there were so many different practices. Like, how does it really all hang together? I found it very confusing. And so it took me a long time to figure out what made sense for me. What is the Buddha saying? How do we translate it? How do we translate it into modern times? So the first instruction that the Buddha gives us is he tells us to go to a quiet place, go to a forest, go to a foot of a tree, sit down cross-legged, spine erect, and set mindfulness to the fore. That's the first instruction. Set up the practice is what he's saying. Before you do any fancy footwork, set up the practice. Set up the practice so that the conditions for mindfulness can arise. If I'm a painter, or if I want to paint, I'm going to set up the conditions to paint. I'm going to choose and prep the medium that I'm going to work in. I'm going to choose and prep the space. I'm going to deliberately set aside the busyness of my work and the leisure activities, and I am going to deliberately orient and get my head and my mind and my heart and my body in the space to paint. So it is with practice. Setup is key. And that is what you hear us emphasizing so much. The holding environment is the opening posture that the Buddha was trying to suggest to us. This is just our translation of it, and one that we think is kind of a helpful handhold, because it doesn't just get at the physical aspect of the body, it gets at the atmospheric condition that we're trying to set up for ourselves. All right. And why is that important, setting up the foundation? Because for most of us in modern day world, we're striving folks. We want to get to the good stuff. We want to get to the wisdom and to the insights. We don't want to stick with the setting up the foundation. That seems too rudimentary. I'm beyond that now. No, you're not beyond it. No, set up the foundation so that your practice can grow and deepen in an organic and safe way. So today I'm going to show you some visuals. I put together a little slideshow. I'm going to walk you through it, and I'm going to have this up on our website, so this will be a resource for you. All right, so you can always refer back to it. Where am I right now? What are they covering? What are we talking about? How does it work? How does it fit together?
Not the BCBS website.
This
will be on our
website. On our website, and I'll give you that information too.
And you're going to be speaking for more than 10 minutes today.
Yes, probably. So, yep. Let me just get to here. Here we go. Okay. Let's see if you can all see this. Can you all see this? The map. Okay. So, before we meditate, it helps to prepare the soil. And then we can begin again. And beginning again, you hear that instruction over and over again. Teachers saying, when the mind wanders away, begin again. And so this is what we're going to learn how to do. We learn how to create a holding environment, right? Something that feels like if we were upset, how would we want to be treated? We want to set up a container like that, a container that allows whatever is present to be present, and we learn how to relate well to that. That's the kind of container, that's the kind of opening posture that we want to create. But we can't just, like, everybody's body is different. All of us are different. So we really have to find our own way with those instructions. And this is what the Buddha said, Ehipassiko, come and see for yourself. I'm going to show you, just give you the bare bones instructions, and you're going to fiddle around and play with those instructions and find your way in. So he says, set the stage. Set the stage. And all we're going to do is we're following the Buddha's guidance now. We're going to set up a foundation that can grow our practice. What are the two components to that? Optimizing the conditions, opening up the body. We do this every time before we sit down. We open up the body. We make some space, right? Like that. We tenderize the organism, and then we slowly settle into a posture. We go to a quiet place, to a forest, to a little corner of our room, and we set up a practice, and we set up an attitude of caring attention. We do this for our welfare. We check in and see, how's the body, how's breathing, how's the heart, and how's the mind? And we invite it to settle down. We encourage it to settle down so that we can slowly begin to attend more closely and caringly to what's going on. So we create this holding environment, one that holds. By following these simple instructions at the top, we settle and align the body. This is what the Buddha said. Go to a forest, sit down, cross-legged, spine erect. Well, we don't have to go cross-legged, spine erect, but we do want to settle the body into something that is aligned in the field of gravity, that is settled down onto the ground so it feels safe and stable enough. And then we soften the breathing so that the breathing finds its own rhythm. And we invite the heart, that quality of friendliness. And then we invite the mind to let go of the busyness of my thinking, my usual thoughts, and I begin to orient toward qualities of ease and comfort and well-being. I begin to notice and care about the settling process itself. So here are a few little handholds, and in the footnotes I put them. Feel for an alert, relaxed posture of caring attention, as if a beneficial presence, as if a wise elder, a caring friend was attending to the experience of your well-being. Now, do you see how different that is than if you're watching over your well-being? No, as if a caring friend, a wise elder, were doing that. And each time the mind wanders away and you notice that, you take a breath and you come on back in and you rebuild exactly the way we did at the beginning. We settle and align the body. We soften the breath. We feel into the atmosphere of the heart and say, oh my goodness, darling, let's feel into a little bit more warmth and friendliness. And we bring the mind back to, oh, let's feel into comfort and ease. Now we're coming in for a landing. This is what we want. This is where we begin to practice. And this stable foundation we've just created, this is an expression of concentration. The body is stable and settled, and as best as possible, the heart-mind is too. Just like if we were taking a photograph, we want to stabilize the camera before we click. Before we take any photograph, we stabilize that, focus on, see, what do I want to focus my attention on? Click, right there. And now this is the elegance of what the Buddha taught, is that each time the mind wanders away and you come back like that, you begin to create a little feedback loop, a positive feedback loop in the mind. Oh, now I'm beginning to, each time my mind wanders away and I get distracted or upset, I'm going to come back and I'm going to hit the reset button so that I feel a little bit more comfortable and stable. And I come back to beginning again as if for the first time. that will over time grow the foundation to feel more secure and steady, and slowly then it will be able to hold more over time with practice. So once we've set up this opening posture of the practice, as the Buddha had recommended, well, then we begin practicing mindfulness. And what do we begin practicing? We begin practicing with the Eightfold Path, using the Threefold training. Now this, let me see if I can make this bigger for you folks. And remember, you're going to have all of this, so I don't want you to worry about keeping track of all this, okay? But let me try to make this a little bigger for you, and I'll kind of move it all around. So, we're looking at the Buddha's teachings, and we went through the four noble truths. The first one is the truth of suffering. In life, there is suffering. No doubt about it. Unavoidable. And then in life, the second noble truth is looking at the cause of suffering. What is the cause of suffering? We begin to look at that. And we notice that the origin of suffering and attachment is desire. It's craving. Right? Craving because we want something, because we don't want something, because we want to become something. And then there's a third noble truth, which says that it's such a hopeful truth. It says, there's a way out of this suffering, folks. There is a way. And that fourth noble truth shows us the way. It shows us the path. There is a path that leads to the end of that suffering. And that is the Eightfold Path. That fourth noble truth is what we've begun to look at. So let me move down to the next slide. Okay, it's the fourth noble truth we're working on now. And let's just step back and just look at the path from two different perspectives. So we could think about the path from the perspective of the Eightfold Path, the 8 factors that constitute the path. And we've begun to look at them. We look at the grouping of those first 3 tetrad, which is right speech, right action, right livelihood, or wise speech, wise action, wise livelihood. And we've done that. We looked at sila, and that's about training our ethical conduct. It's about training so that our behavior is in line with not causing harm. And now this is where we are. Right now, we are right here. We're looking at this second tetrad of samadhi, right here. Right effort, right concentration, and right mindfulness. Let me move down here. So again, this just kind of lays it out for you so you can see very clearly what each one does, what they're doing. Now these two make a feedback loop, folks. Sila, if we're not causing trouble in the world and causing trouble for ourselves, and we sit down to take our seat to set up the posture of the practice, samadhi, mindfulness, we're setting up that practice. Well, our mind is going to be less stressed and easier to be more conducive to settling down and being able to be attentive because we're not disturbed by having caused trouble. And as we settle in and learn how to practice meditation over time, insights will arise, and we'll get to that. That's panya. But right now, we're going to stay with samadhi. So let me just keep moving down here so I can bring you along. This, again, is just a reference point, lays out a little bit more clearly sila, which we went through earlier, and then samadhi, and then panya. And we'll move on to panya. This is sila. And sila, sila is about, again, not causing trouble with how we talk to people or how we talk to ourselves, not causing trouble by having an attitude of care and kindness and consideration, non-harm, and not causing trouble with our body, with how we move our body, not hurting other people physically, right? That's sila. And samadhi is now we're going to train the mind and the heart. We're going to train it so that with right effort, here we see with right effort, we create balanced effort. And with concentration, right in the middle here, we create calm stability. And that is what we're doing. Again, when we set up the posture of the practice, we set up a calm stability so that over time we can open up and investigate. Okay? And this is what the whole thing kind of looks like so far that we've done. The Four Noble Truths, we set up the posture of the practice, and then we went into the Four Noble Truths, and we're kind of working right within this fourth Noble Truth and looking at the path itself. How do I actually practice mindfulness?